moment.
The verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse double murder trial could come at any moment. Inside the courtroom right now, a jury of 7 women and 5 men are deliberating the charges against Rittenhouse. Earlier today, the 18-year-old randomly picking the group of people who will decide his fate. Outside, protesters are gathering on the steps of the courthouse and the National Guard on standby in the city of Kenosha as local officials call for calm when the verdict comes down. The key issue for the jurors to decide was Rittenhouse acting in self-defense, or did he intend to kill 2 people and wound another? Prosecutors say Rittenhouse was a vigilante and expecting violence, while the defense making the case that he was attacked while trying to protect the community.
Everybody takes a beating sometimes, right? Sometimes you get in a scuffle and maybe you do get hurt a little bit. That doesn't mean you get to start plugging people with your Full Metal Jacket AR-15.
What the defendant wants you to believe is that because he's the one who brought the gun, he gets to kill. When the defendant provokes the incident, he loses the right to self-defense.
Kyle was a 17-year-old kid out there trying to help this community. But the district attorney's office is marching forward with this case because they need somebody to be responsible. Kyle Rittenhouse's behavior was protected under the law of the state of Wisconsin, the law of self-defense.
And the media coverage of this case facing a new scrutiny for a rush to judgment before the facts came out.
They're having a protest in another state, and he takes it upon himself to go there, you know, and then he says it's self-defense. No.
Crying on the witness stand like he's some poor babe in the woods, and he just happened to cross state lines, break gun laws.
On cross-examination, what we saw was, I thought, a very rehearsed Kyle Rittenhouse.
If a black kid did that, killed 2 people and injured another person, how would America feel about that?
These are the victims. These are the people that people ought to remember are the people who were hurt here, not the person who was crying on the stand.
Basically, what they're saying is, oh, it's okay to shoot white people, too.
Geraldo, let's start with you from a legal perspective and somebody who's followed this case closely, and then we'll take it on the table, too.
Well, I think the verdict should, if the jurors stick to the law, result in an acquittal. I think once they dropped the less serious charges, it made the possibility of a clean sweep more likely. Why? Because self-defense is so powerful in Wisconsin particularly. And I think that it's pretty clear that this kid, however, I personally feel that he has been lionized way over the top, that he has been portrayed by half this country as a heroic youngster fighting for his community. I don't believe that at all. I think he watched too many Rambo movies. He's a kid that took an AR-15, took a machine gun to a riot. I think that it was...
It's not a machine gun.
Or whatever.
And he's too young to watch Rambo.
AR-15.
He's 17.
Then you don't have cable TV or direct TV.
You think Rambo made him do that?
But he's not on trial for those things.
My point is he will be acquitted. He should be acquitted. But I think that this is what is very distressing. And I made a point of telling my dear colleague here, we have to be careful not to root for an outcome in a criminal case. Let these jurors decide based on the facts and circumstances as they were presented, the legal evidence that was presented. I must say that well after my appearance here last week, I found the articles that had the pictures of him giving the white supremacy sign on the QT. I got the picture here. You're what joking?
What, you actually believe this is a white supremacy sign?
What do you think it is?
It's okay. Holy
Including
crap.
the president.
Let it be. I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. And let you ladies and gentlemen in the audience know better than I, because as I said, I only came to this last week. But if indeed he is connected with the white supremacists, that gives you an added layer of distress.
So you're smearing him again. You're smearing him with the lie.
Geraldo, they checked his phone. Geraldo,
they
checked his phone.
What is this?
Right,
is that real?
Geraldo, they checked his phone. This kid's 17.
There
was not one thing about militia or white supremacy on the phone. Not one. Okay? Checked his phone. Nothing on it. So that's that.
So it's just
that's that,
it's just
Geraldo.
a coincidence.
So that's that. All right? Okay, Geraldo.
I'm saying,
this
I'm
is what
a lawyer,
saying. And this
will be based on the facts.
And that's what we want.
He should be acquitted.
We want that.
Listen to what I'm saying.
I listened.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Wait, we're just responding to what you just said.
By the undertone.
Okay.
You say you're a lawyer, you're based on facts, and you bring up something about this.
And what is that? Means nothing to you?
Yes, means nothing.
All right, great.
I
hope you're
it's
right.
not a fact.
Like I said,
it's an opinion.
Maybe Gutfeld is right. Maybe Jesse's right.
Maybe. I'll show you Barack Obama going like this, okay?
Emmanuel Lewis was doing this.
Everyone
I brought
does
that.
It, all right?
And who was he standing with?
All right, let me get Katie.
You know, he's probably standing with Farrakhan.
We're going to get everybody.
He took a picture with Farrakhan, all right?
You know, who was he standing with? Who was he standing with? I don't know.
I would read the article, but Jesse.
Well, we can go back. We can go back to the
Nancy
case.
Pelosi did.
We could go back to.
ahead,
We can go
Katie.
back to the facts of the case and what happened and the reason why we're in this situation. Geraldo, the reason we're here is because a mob of criminal adults and rioters, including a man who was shot and killed, who was a multi-time pedophile, child rapist, attacked Kyle because he was in Kenosha putting out the fires at the buildings that the rioters were starting. The police were not there to stop the rioters from starting these fires or to put out the fires. Kyle was there doing that, and so they didn't like that very much, and therefore they attacked him, they assaulted him, and they threatened to kill him, which is why he ended up defending himself in self-defense. 2 days before the riots, this is also something a lot of people don't know, another band of criminals showed up in Kenosha with rifles, rioters, who confronted the police, and the police backed off, and that's why the police weren't there that day to stop the rioters from fighting fires. The men in this case who have been killed, Joseph Rosenbaum, child rapist, spent 15 years in prison. Anthony Huber had a felony strangulation and suffocation charge against him, pulled a knife on his brother and his grandmother. Engaged Grosskreutz, who was the one who was shot but survived, charged with armed with a gun while being intoxicated, also a crime. Admitted in court that he stuck a gun in Kyle's face, and that's why he was shot by Kyle in self-defense. I wonder, though, on the other side of this, I was thinking about this last night, how could you go through the case and come to the conclusion that you did, that Kyle should be acquitted? Well, what if people are watching a week's worth of video and the town burning down and going, I don't want that to happen again, so I have to come to a different conclusion? That's not what the jury instructions are. But there are threats about this. The jury was not sequestered. There are people outside the courtroom, and there are 500 National Guard or soldiers in town to prevent something like this from happening. So what if they're seeing it from the other perspective of, if I don't make the right decision based on the mob, then my family is going to be threatened, and that's a problem.
You could hear the protesters I'm sure they said that in the courtroom you could hear the protesters outside. So surely the jury, wherever they are in that room, or could probably hear it too.
It was the point I made after Chauvin when I go like, oh, I'm relieved he was found guilty, so my city won't burn. And people thought, oh, that's a terrible thing to say. I was making a comment on society, on that's how it is, how now society dictates how people decide in court. We're watching businesses getting boarded up on what I call an MIH, a media-induced hurricane, right? We should have categories for this. The media induces this by deliberately weighting the coverage in a way that they want. So both CNN and MSNBC chose not to show most, if not all, of the closing arguments from the defense. So what you're left with is what you heard from the prosecution, which is that one of them didn't have a gun when he had a gun, that Rittenhouse is a racist or doesn't like blacks. He wasn't doing the attacking. He wasn't being attacked. So by only showing one side of this, that makes the riots more justified. When Toobin says the judge misled the jury on CNN, that means the justice was not served. Therefore, the activists can say, okay, here we go again. We have to go out there and burn everything down. So the media just pushes the lie again and again that no justice can be had. This is the difference between humanity and media. For humanity, we live by the boy who cried wolf. It's a necessary fable to build trust. When a boy who cries wolf, you don't trust him. That's a morality tale. In the media, it's a profit model, right? For the media, the boy who cried wolf is what they do with race, what they do with climate, what they do with guns, because it's their goddamn profit model. That's why they keep doing it, and they're doing it again. Sorry, I swore.
That's all right. I think that's all.
I should have said, gosh darn.
Permission to swear was granted in retrospect.
If Dana grants it, then
in retrospect.
Okay, then send your letters to Dana for letting me do that.
I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want you to get in trouble. So let you wrap it up, whatever you want.
I mean, I have a lot to say. I think we got to go to a commercial break.
They said we have time.
All right, well, then here we go. So this is what the left did. They falsely label something racist, the Blake shooting, and then that justifies their riots, because a riot against racism has to be righteous, right? That justifies all of their ransacking and looting and burning, and you can't get in the way of a righteous riot, right? That makes you racist, right? So Kyle got in the way, and he should have just taken a beating. That's what the prosecution said. Just take your beating. Kyle didn't take the beating. Kyle used self-defense, and that's what they can't have. They had to make an example out of Kyle. They have to chill other people for trying to protect their own communities. Also, total snobs. Oh, why would you want to have to protect Kenosha? It's just flyover country. Just a bunch of middle-class rubes with, maybe some fires got started at a car dealership. Whoopee. Who cares? Well, it's the other thing if they come after Santa Barbara or Georgetown or the Hamptons. That's private property. That's expensive. That's worth protecting. So they're conditioning the country to bow to the mob. They're conditioning the country to not use their Second Amendment right. And they're using psychological warfare, as Greg said. They will basically take a huge villain, a pedophile, a lying communist, and turn the guy into a hero. Or they'll take a guardian of a community and make that guy a villain.
He's a guardian of the community.
And he went there to give medical aid and put out fires, all right? And that confuses the country, and then Democrats exploit that confusion for power.
All right. More to come at 7 p.m.
More to come
on prime time. All right.
Unless you get bumped.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.